Normalize knowing that everyone you meet or even like is not your friend. There are levels to friendships that range from acquaintance to soulmate. Friendships involve a mutual interest in one another, reciprocity, trust, support, and a deep desire for connection. And that was tweeted by Mina B. Hello everyone and welcome to the Toy Talks podcast. I am of course the creator and the host of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toy Washington. If you are new here, welcome. Make sure you acquaint yourself with some of the previous podcast episodes so you can get a feel of what we talk about here. And to all my returning listeners, hello. Thank you for joining me. I try and post a new episode every 2 weeks. So I literally try to aim for twice a month, if I'm honest. And I think that's come from, number one, how much work and effort that I've put into the podcast already. There's over 100 episodes, of which I know some people, are still catching up, or some people have skipped episodes. And there are, listeners who have listened to every single episode. And those of you who re-listen to episodes, which I think is also a good thing, because you may not be going through a situation that is covered in a particular topic of an episode, but if you are going through it, then you're able to kind of go back to the podcast and listen. Also as well, I'm trying to be a lot kinder to myself in 2023. I feel like over the last 2 years, especially with the podcast, I've been consistent. I've really given it my all, and I've suffered from burnout from things happening outside of work, outside of the podcast as well, with work in my career. And I just feel like there's enough material that makes me confident that I can reduce from weekly to bi-weekly. And there's going to be times when you might get weekly episodes for a month, I don't know. But those of you who, have your alerts on and everything, you'll know when a new episode is live. And I also post on my social media handles as well when I post a new episode. So, oh God, I don't even know where to start. So I think I'm naming this episode Princess Cuts. And it's a little bit of a play on words as well because of what happened last week. And we all know Breenie Lee, who is a content creator, motivational speaker, and I don't know if we're going to call her a feminist. I don't know, relationship guru. I don't know what we're calling. Okay. And I'm not throwing shit, I'm just saying, because I know that there's a lot of strings to her bow. Irrespective of what you think about her, she has been able to reinvent herself in a way that is amazing. And I feel like I try not to, as much as possible, speak on black women from a negative perspective, because that's not what I'm about. But equally, if I feel like someone is putting some negative content out there, I am going to talk about it and give another perspective, especially if I don't agree with what's being put out. So first of all, I want to caveat this by saying I personally do not listen to Breenie Lee. I've tried. I have really tried, but not every content, just because you can identify with someone who looks like you doesn't mean that their content is for you. There are some people that maybe the Toy Talks podcast and platform is content that's not for them, and that's fine. Like, you can't please everybody. And my aim is not to please everybody. My aim is to provide educational tools, teach, guide and educate black women how to navigate the world of work safely. That's what I do. So the free will and choice to engage in the content is all yours. That's how I look at it. And that's how I see like other content creators. It's not by force. Breenie Lee is just not my cup of tea, especially because I feel like she's not consistent in her messaging. And we all know, like, I'm really vocal about how I see religion and things like that. And my religious leanings is more spiritual. I was born and raised in the church. My dad used to be a pastor before he had to step down when he got really ill. I grew up in the church from the age of about 6 years old until my early 20s. And then I, at 18, had a conversation with my dad. My early 20s, I converted to Islam, and I still hold very dearly a lot of the practice and teachings in Islam, and there's still things that I have in my life that will not change, that Islam opened my eyes to. So I would describe myself as a spiritual person. I'm very much in tune with my ancestors. I respect all religions, and I think everybody should have the free will to decide where they lean into. I don't necessarily like how Christianity has been used as almost like, I don't like how Christianity is sometimes used, especially in the African community, and particularly in the Nigerian community, as a weapon. And I don't like how it's aligned itself with money and then used as an oppressive tool. I have shared my experiences of the church, things I've witnessed, and the reason why I've kind of taken a step back and I've now concentrated on what I have learned from religion and channeled that into my spirituality and taken it all the way back historically before the white man invaded and colonized Nigeria, especially being an Igbo woman. What was the religion of the day? And it was very spiritual. It was a lot of work with the deities and stuff, which, you know, the white man basically said, no, it's no good. We'll bring Christianity and that's what you should be doing, because anything outside of that is bad. And then started labelling things witchcraft and stuff like that. So you have to know your history to really understand how how Christianity made its way into Africa. But I digress. Bree Neely. So I typically can't listen to her content. I've tried several times. I think not only is she a beautiful woman, but I love the way that she has been able to reinvent herself, and she's danced to the beat of her own drum. However, her messaging is very contradictory at times, and it's I find it really dangerous when you're made to feel as though in order to be quote unquote accepted Christian, you should lead a certain life. But then when you take the hood off the car, people are not living that life. Now, what I want to say is there was a period in my life, in my mid-20s, where I was celibate. And I made the decision to be celibate because I kind of felt like I was making the wrong decisions about relationships because I wasn't celibate, if that makes sense. And when I then became more focused on what I wanted in terms of relationships, or even if I wanted a relationship, I kind of figured that celibacy was the way to go, so that I could just focus on the person rather than have relationships centered on sex. Now, that wasn't necessarily because I was a devout Christian, because I wasn't. That was more about me taking a more pragmatic approach on what relationships meant and why I was mixing being physical with relationships. And actually, if you take the physical and the sexual element out of relationships, you then focus on the person. And that was the decision I made. And then when I was ready to remove celibacy, I didn't feel like I had to justify myself because the decision I made was not necessarily religious. Now, everybody makes a decision and has the autonomy to make a decision over their body. And I don't think anyone is in a position to judge certain decisions. But I think the issue I have is when people talk about celibacy and then they talk about religion, and then you almost feel like I sometimes feel like it's made to feel like a little bit of a club. And if you can't do the celibacy side of things, then you're not part of the Christianity club. That's personally how I feel. Now, Bree Neely has shared certain stories on social media and on YouTube, and a lot of people have been really shocked because they thought that she was living a life of celibacy, but actually she then reveals that she was in a relationship and whatever. And I'm not going to quote everything she said, but I think that celibacy is a personal journey anyway, and I didn't understand why she would share that aspect of things, because I just think it's so private. And I feel like the more you share, the more you allow people to have an opinion. So the fact that people are saying certain things now is not surprising because she opened the door. So that's what I'm going to say on that. So if you haven't been following what's been happening on social media, Bree Neely actually posted something recently, actually on the 9th of March. And this is what she posted. She said, if you carry yourself like a princess, you wouldn't even need to ask for princess treatment. The reason you're not getting princess treatment is because you're not a princess. And then she goes on to say, you should never ask a man directly for anything. You create an atmosphere that makes him feel masculine and he'll want to give you everything. And then she said, you sound entitled when you make demands because you're trying to take control and be the man. The feminine is receiving energy, open energy. Now, Bree Neely was absolutely lambasted, like her feet dragged across hot coals of social media about this thread, because people were saying it was giving very pick-me vibes. And if I'm going to be honest, it was giving that. It was, especially because Britney is not walking the, well, I don't know now, but she hasn't actually been walking the path of princess treatment. Because I remember when Kojo the comedian went on social media and he dragged her. He actually humiliated her on social media and basically said that she'd gone on holiday with him and his friends or whatever, and basically she was expecting one of Kojo's friends to pay for her. And then there was this whole discussion about even like the room she was staying in was paid for by someone else or something, what along the lines of that. And I just remember her being dragged, and there was like a whole Clubhouse room about it. It was everywhere on the blogs. But the general gist of it is that she was basically dependent on other people to pay her way. And he really, like Kojo, like no holds bars, he dragged her to filth. So then the contradiction is then she's now talking about princess treatment. And I actually have a problem when certain women perpetuate this, like holding yourself out to be a princess and then people know how to treat you. I think that's like a load of bullshit. I think it's bullshit because I think that what needs to be communicated is women learning how to be independent enough to not have to depend on a man to do anything and not have to depend on her leanings into princess treatment, therefore setting herself up for an expectation to be treated a certain way. Now, I'm not going to ignore the fact that I have hyper independence because of my broken relationship with my mum and because I left home early. So I'm hyper independent because I'm from a space of survival. However, I've always been raised to be independent and stand on my own 2 feet because I think my dad was always really clear that one day he's not going to be here. And I'm going to have to learn how to navigate the world and navigate certain spaces without him. He can teach me what he can teach me, but there's going to come a point where I have to go in the big wide world on my own. So being independent is not just, financial. It's being an independent thinker. And these are the things that I don't think are communicated enough. I feel like when people talk about princess treatment, it's always about spending and men spending on women, or you holding yourself out to be a certain way so somebody feels the need to want to treat you and give you stuff. And I think, is there not a power in working hard and being able to give things to yourself? Because I've been really clear on the podcast and I've been really clear on my social media, the importance of getting your own. I see a man as a bonus. I don't see a man as essential. And a bonus is more, I've got mine and you are the added bonus. And I keep saying on social media, marriage is about love and business, yeah? So when you are dating somebody, you are building the foundation for love and business. And I would like to think that, especially when you get to a certain age of maturity, that you're dating with intention to create that foundation, then to use it as a stepping stone for love and business. Now, marriage is not for everyone, and I'm not saying that, but I would like to think that relationship, even if you don't want to get married, you should still be in a relationship, if it is long term, that is about love and business. Because ultimately, if you don't understand the business concept of relationships, then you really haven't started understanding how relationships are built and then how they then progress. So for me, I have always seen it as, I don't depend on a man for nothing. In fact, I don't depend on anyone for anything. The only person I can depend on is myself. So that comes from where I live, having a roof over my head, being able to cater to myself, and being financially independent enough that I know that everything that passes through my account is depending on what I do to be able to facilitate that money. Do you understand? I think if I started going down the route of princess treatment and, if I carry myself like, when you say carry yourself like a princess, it's really demeaning, because when I think of carrying yourself as a princess, there's a subservient element to that requires a man to feel masculine and requires a man to feel like he needs to look after. And I think that's where we have a problem. I feel like when you're dating A man shouldn't feel the need to look after you because you're acting like a princess. What he should feel the need to do is to stand up and be counted because you have stood up and be counted. Do you understand? I feel like Brittany Lee, I don't know if she has become like one of these feminist relationship people overnight. I don't understand that. But when she has shared some of her experiences, and very recent experiences, I asked myself, where was the princess treatment when he left you on the roadside? Do you understand? Like, where was that princess treatment? And where was you carrying yourself like a princess? Because before he left you on the road, there was stuff that must have happened before. At some stage, you must have realised that this man is not worthy of you, but you stayed there. And then you perpetuate this narrative of carrying yourself as a princess. And it's like, well, why can't we just carry ourselves as strong? And when I say strong, I don't mean the toxic strong. I mean strong in self, in mind, in body, in spirit. Financially independent women. Why can't that be something that's seen as a positive thing? But I feel like sometimes when she's talking, or sometimes when I'm reading stuff that she's posting, it's almost as though it is laced with religion. It's laced with the whole idea that a man is the breadwinner and the man has to come home, you know. And I'm not saying a man can't be a breadwinner, but I have seen and witnessed where where certain men have carried this breadwinner title on their shoulders and it has broken them. I have, like, one thing I always promised myself, even before I met Kay, was that I will never place financial burdens on Kay that would crush him in the pursuit of this whole masculinity breadwinner thing. Because I've watched men break because they can't carry their family. I've watched men break because they don't have the ability to financially meet the needs of their family, and therefore they feel less of a man. I've seen all those things, but my view is whatever Kay can do, I can do. If something was to happen, Kay knows I've got the family. Like, I've got us. And if anything happened on my side, I know Kay's got us. And I think that's a more balanced way to be. It doesn't erode his ability to be a man. And I say man, you know, inverted commas, because it's whatever society dictates a man is supposed to be. I'm not eroding Kay's masculinity or his ability to be the head of the home. That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying here is I'm able to financially and independently stand on my own. And I see Kay's money as a bonus to what I can bring too. But equally, Kay can bring the same, if not more, and meet me halfway as well. And I think that makes for a healthier relationship, personally. Now, when I was growing up, I used to believe that my role was in the home. I was like to my dad, I'm going to marry someone who's got money so I don't have to work. I used to say all these things to my dad. And one day my dad turned to me and my dad said, if you make a decision to never work and depend on your husband, does that mean you'll always ask permission to leave the house? I didn't understand what he meant. I was like, what's he talking about? But I get it, because I would always have to ask for the financial ability to leave the house. Or you would feel like you would have to answer to the person who was... Do you understand? And for me, that could never be me. No, don't get it twisted. Sis, we're all exhausted, huh? Because working whilst black is a lot, especially in this country. But I would rather be free to make independent decisions than have to rely on someone because they financially bring in the money. So when we're talking about princess treatment, we need to be really careful about what we're saying here. Because what you're really saying is dependency. Because when someone starts receiving this quote unquote princess treatment, it's in exchange for something. And it's an easier life. And I'm really sorry. No. It's not going to be that. You know, I don't necessarily believe a woman's place in the kitchen. I love to cook, and I love cooking for Kay. I love, you know, the process of cooking. I find it very therapeutic. But Kay can cook too. Oh yes, he can. Because the way I looked at it is, if I never taught Kay how to cook, or actually not, I shouldn't say taught how to cook. If I never taught him how to do certain things, so like clean chicken and, you know, roast this and make that. If I was sick one day, how would Kay look after me? Because Deliveroo ain't it. and neither is Uber Eats. It's all well and good if Kay's unwell, I'll be able to take care of him. But if I'm unwell, who's going to take care of me? That's how I looked at things. When we start putting people into spheres, it becomes quite dangerous, especially because the world is evolving and has evolved. And I am in no way a feminist, so I don't believe I'm a feminist, but I have certain views that people will mistakenly believe they're feminist views, and they're not. I just think as women, we do ourselves a disservice if we fail to acknowledge and receive what true independence really means in terms of who we are, and we fail to have an identity of self. If you carry your, Brunelli said, if you carry yourself like a princess, you wouldn't even need to ask for princess treatment. And I need it defined what princess treatment is, because I feel like I can make assumptions, but I need to know what that princess treatment is. But I always feel like it's lack of responsibility, and then you give that responsibility to someone else because you're in this notion of princess treatment. I also want to re-emphasize that I'm really concerned about how certain people push this narrative that you're unchristian for certain things. No one gets to decide how much more of a Christian you are in comparison to. I feel like this is the problem that I've always had with religion, especially Christianity, because obviously that's what the religion I was raised in. You're made to feel like the biggest sinner on earth if you so much as look at a man and feel aroused, or look at a woman and feel aroused, then you're unchristian. If you don't face your front, you're unchristian. If you don't tithe, you're unchristian. If you don't carry yourself in a certain way as a woman, you're unchristian. And it's becoming very toxic, and it's becoming very dangerous, because I don't know if people are realizing people are choosing then to walk away from Christianity because of the high wall that's put up, and the way people are being made to feel like they're not good enough. So it's almost like, well, if I'm not good enough and there's nothing I could do to be good enough, then I'll just walk away. And you're losing people who are of the faith or want to be of the faith, because you're creating these criteria that clearly they're not meeting according to you. And sometimes I just wonder, when did Jesus start choosing disciples, like New Age disciples? Because I feel like people are becoming self-employed disciples of Jesus Christ, and it's becoming very irritating. I feel like certain people also are taking the mic and trying to make themselves the authority of Christianity, and therefore relationships and how they should look. But when you open the closet, the skeletons that are rolling out of there is just very mad and very crazy. And I'm going to be really honest, I feel like there's a lot of people that are really highly influenced by a lot of people online, and rightly or wrongly, fine. But I think when you decide to be a self-employed femininity coach, you have to be very careful with how you're also living your life that emulates that self-employed femininity coach, because no one asked you. But how you were living and how you're sharing that you're living and what you're preaching are incompatible. So it's giving very confused vibes. It's giving contradictory vibes. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that we're not all a work in progress, but I feel like some people, when they put themselves in a certain position, they become very judgmental, forgetting that we all have fallen, we all fall, and we're all wretched sinners. And when I say we're all wretched sinners, even the word sin seems kind of harsh. We're all learning and growing in a world that continues to evolve. We continue to evolve as we adapt to this world, but also our views change depending on how we now start to mature and see certain situations. And don't get me wrong, I do think that, and I'm speaking from purely as a woman from a heterosexual perspective. I have been that woman in my younger years where I thought a man is supposed to pay for you, and it's a very uncomfortable situation that I used to put myself in my early 20s, when I used to go on these dates, knowing full well I had no money to pay for these dates, thinking that my prettiness and my cuteness and the way I was, pandering would make the guy pay. And there was always that 10-second situation where the bill would come, and I'd think, if he can't pay for this and I can't pay for this, we're fucked. And I remember speaking to my dad one time, and my dad saying to me, whenever you go out on a date, carry your bag, carry your purse. And in my head I was like, well, why would I carry my purse if a guy's asked me on a date? And that's also because I don't want to feel like I owe you anything. I don't want to feel like owe you my time when you're boring my tits off. You're boring my tits off, you're a boring person. I don't want to feel like I owe you my time because you've paid, so now you've paid for my time. Do you understand? I don't want to feel like I owe you anything other than this date. So the only way to level out the playing field is to not walk into these dates or walk into situations with expectation. I have to walk in the knowledge that I can cover myself. And it's such a shame that we're talking about it from a financial perspective, because no one wants to talk about the psychology of kind of interacting with people who you're on dates with, whether it's same sex, opposite sex, whatever this, whoever you choose to be with. Like, no one wants to talk about actually. For me, it's not about princess treatment. It's about knowing the treatment you should receive in relationships or whilst dating, full stop. Let's stop elevating it to levels of prince and princess treatment. Why can't we talk about the psychology of being in the right frame of mind to even know how to date, who to date, what you should expect on a date, and how you carry yourself on a date? Do you understand? Or how you date? I personally think it's quite toxic, and I think it's very dangerous to start approaching dates from a princess treatment mentality. Now, I say all of this to say, ZZ Mills posted something the other day, and I couldn't agree with her more. In fact, I was like, finally, somebody has said it. She says, some of you girls care more about money than safety. Because why do you want someone who you just met to know where you live or know whereabouts you live, just to say he picked you up or sent you an Uber? It's giving entitled. Get your own Uber, babe, for your own safety. Then I reposted it, and I said, I completely agree. This entitlement of transportation is given low-level vibrations. Don't stand on independence, but you can't find transportation to attend a date. See, this is where princess treatment leads you. Because where do we draw the line of what to expect? Where do you draw the line? I can't remember who or what it was. I think Aloni was talking about it on her podcast. I can't remember. It was somebody who was speaking about it on the podcast. And they were saying how something about somebody wouldn't go on a date with someone because they didn't, or they was expecting them to send an Uber or put them in an Uber or something of that nature. And I'm going to have to be really honest with you. It could never be me. It can't be me. Especially in this day and age where violence against women is at a startling number. Why would you jeopardize your safety for this quote unquote princess treatment, where you're now expecting someone to come and collect you or send an Uber or order an Uber after the day? Like, where did we start going with this, where we started becoming so dependent that of a particular treatment on a date? And my thing is, if you get all this treatment, what does it actually mean? What does it mean? Does it mean that you become a prize? I don't understand. I'm genuinely confused of what that means. I used to thrive in the idea that I'd go on a date, and whether it went well or not, I felt free to go home or go where I wanted to afterwards. I didn't feel compelled to then expect someone to take me home or whatever. Because number one, I either paid 50-50, and yeah, maybe 50-50 stinks sometimes. But sometimes you have to do it, because especially in this day and age, I feel like when I was growing up, yeah, the guy would tend to pay, but I would always, I would always make sure that I offered at least, or if he paid on everything, and then we went on to somewhere else, I'd pay for where we went to next. Because I never wanted to feel like I owe you something. And maybe some people may look at that and say, well, Toya, maybe that's got to do with whatever viewpoint you had about relationships then. Fair enough. But it was also about having the autonomy to also end the date if I wanted to too. I don't want to feel that obligation, because I'm holding myself out to be this so quote unquote princess, jeopardizing my safety and jeopardizing my ability to say, or jeopardizing my ability to feel that I can say no, or I don't want to see you next time, or I want to go early because I feel like I owe you something now because no. We need to start promoting the importance of having autonomy, and part of having that autonomy is not relying on anyone. Now, don't get me wrong. Anyone who wants to pay, like a guy's offering to pay, that's fine. But that's like a natural course of things, not because you have manipulated the situation because of this whole carrying yourself as a quote unquote princess. You should carry yourself as who you are. Do you understand? Like, I know there's a cost of living crisis, but I feel like there's a bigger crisis here where, you know, we have people in the community sending mixed messages, and you've got highly impressionable young women who are following blindly. That seems to me to be the bigger crisis. So I hope this all makes sense, because I've got younger cousins who are really impressed by certain people and have said certain things to me, and then when I've challenged the school of thought, I get these like Google eyes where people are like, they're like, I never thought of it like that. So you need to start thinking of it like that. Because equally as well, if somebody's saying carry yourself like a princess, but then they're being lambasted about a trip to Dubai, where was the princess crown? And I asked a question on social media, was the princess crown left in baggage claim? Because I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. I'll give you an example of something. So when I met Kay, I've shared this before, but I met Kay on Tinder, and I know Tinder has changed since when I met Kay, and I met Kay about 5.5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. And we were speaking for weeks on the phone, and we had a FaceTime call, and then Kay decided that he was going to come to London. So he was living in Belgium at the time, living and working in Belgium. So when he said he was coming down, I was like, oh, okay. So you coming down to the UK? He was going to stay at a friend's house. I was living on my own at the time, and he was staying at he was going to come and stay at his friend's house. I said, this is like, I didn't call it a date. I said, this is there was a word I called it, like, I called it something like a meet-up. That's what I called it. I said, so it's a meet-up. So Kay was like, listen, if I'm crossing borders and I'm coming all the way from Belgium, this is not a meet-up, this is a date. I was like, okay. Now, I liked that. I liked that Kay was quite forthright in what his intentions were, and it was clear. See, for me, I like clarity. I think part of it is because I'm dyslexic. I like clarity. Always very respectful. So, I met Kay at Liverpool Street Station. I was crapping myself. I was so nervous. But I said to myself, let me meet at Liverpool Street Station because, bruv, it's a busy station. If it's looking like a crimped cracker, then I will just make my excuse. I need to use the toilet. I will disappear. Me, I was that girl. Okay? Now, I never dated exclusively. I dated many people now, but one thing I didn't do is sleep with anyone I was dating with at the time, because I wanted to date with clarity of mind. And that's nothing to do with religion. I think that's more to do with me as a person, understand how I tick. So then, Kay said he booked a place in Shoreditch. So he was like, oh, do you know how, how to get to Shoreditch from here? So at the time, I had heels on. If you know anything about me, yeah, I can't walk properly in heels, bruv. And that's partly because my heels were always too high. They looked cute, but I couldn't walk in them. And I said to myself, for dates, Abby, no. So I said, let's get a taxi, let's get an Uber. So he didn't have Uber on his phone, but I did. So I ordered the Uber, and obviously I paid for the Uber. So we get to the place now, and we eat and everything, but the food, we didn't like the food at the place that we ate. It was like this really posh steak place, and I was like, And he had decided to choose the steak place because I said to him I really like steak, but that particular steak was just and when I say it was too posh, like, I like, the whole gauchos or STK, that's kind of my thing. But this place was like, them type of posh places where you'll see the butchers in the back. It was just too posh, and they have like 3 lines of steak and some bread. It was just weird. So I said to Kay, listen, I'm not a fool. And he goes, oh, phew, because I'm not either. I says, well, let's just go back to Liverpool Street. There's a nice Pizza Express there. Let's go. So he's like, okay, cool. So we started walking, and I was like, I'll order an Uber. And he said, no, I don't really feel comfortable with that because you pay for the Uber here. Why don't I go to the cash point and I'll take the cash out that you've spent on the Uber and for the one that we'll use now. And then, I'll pay for our next meal. And I said, no, it's fine. Listen, Kay was not happy about it because his perspective is he's taken me out on a date and doesn't want me to pay. And I said, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Because then we would have had to spend time finding a cash point. My heels are hurting. We're still hungry. Let's get back to Liverpool Street. Anyway, ended up getting the Uber, and I could see that it was uncomfortable, that, I had to pay for it. But that was enough for me. You're probably thinking, what are you talking about? Well, it was enough for me that he showed me that his intention was to take me on a date and pay for everything. He didn't intend that I would pay for an Uber because he didn't think Shoreditch was far away from Liverpool Street. Now, maybe somebody can say, well, it's poor planning. But this is a person that travelled all the way from Belgium on the Eurostar in the morning, dropped his stuff at his friend's house, got changed, came and meet me at Liverpool Street. Now, the least I could do is pay for the Uber. I did not mind. And also as well, it gave me an opportunity to see how he even reacts to that. It was enough for me to know that actually this is the type of person that he's not trying to do 50-50. It was just a convenience thing. We get to the Pizza Express and we eat, I order the food, whatever I want to eat, I eat. And we didn't even realise that they had closed and we were still there talking. And actually, by the time we realised that everybody in the restaurant had left, the lady came over to the table and she said, you guys look so nice together, talking of it. We just didn't want to disturb you. So we've just been cleaning up around you and we didn't even realise it. Now for me, that may be not good enough because some of you are going to the Shard or you're going to, what's this now? What's this restaurant they call it? I don't know, Players Club. What's this one? Arts Club. You're going to all these places. I'm a very simple person. And when I say simple, I'm simple in a sense that you don't need to wine and dine me, take me to the Ivy for me to know what your intentions are. I want good food and company, and Pizza Express at the time was good enough for me. And I learned a few things about Kay. I learned that he's very much a gentleman, but what makes him a gentleman, for me, according to how I define a gentleman, is that he was very polite. He opened doors for me. He held himself in everything he said to me, as we had previously spoken, that's how he held himself out to be. It was a nice first date. I even forgot that I paid for both Ubers. I actually forgot. Does it make me less of a princess, quote unquote, according to that quote? No, it doesn't, because I don't consider myself a princess. I actually consider myself a strong, independent black woman who not only gets her own, is able to look after herself and be financially dependent on herself. That's how I define my princess, if we're going to start talking about that. But I don't even see myself as a princess. I see myself as a fully grown woman. To call me a princess almost demeans me in that sense. And I also consider myself a queen, a black queen. And, 5 years later, Kay and I are married. We share assets. And we also have our individualities as we also do have our identity as a couple. And I really want that message to resonate. Now, bearing in mind, I didn't get married until I'm 38. So I must have got married at 35 or 36. Did I get married at 36? I must have been 36. 35, 36. I think I was 36 when I got married. Now, according to some people, that's marrying quite late. But I'm telling you right now, if I got married in my 20s, it wouldn't have worked. Because I lacked the emotional development to really understand what relationships meant. If you've got this princess mentality, that's not a developed mind to sustain a marriage. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm not here to give anyone marriage advice. And I've said to one of my friends, I would never give anyone marriage advice because I'm a student of life and I'm a student of this marriage. But what I have learned is how you approach finances, how you date will ultimately determine the foundation in which you're setting for a relationship, a serious relationship. And then if you wanted to get married, it will ultimately set the tone of what that's supposed to be. Now, if you carry yourself as a princess, when does that stop? Or do you carry that all the way to marriage if that's what you intend to do, get married? Or does that carry itself all the way into a serious committed relationship? And then where does that person draw the line? Does that make that person less of a human being because they're now not treated as a princess? It's very toxic, a very toxic cycle of thinking. I personally think that the reason why Brini Lee was getting roasted, like literally roasted, lambasted, they were using her like fried rice and chicken stew on that social media, on Beyonce's social media, is because she's not living by what she's not living by what she's saying. And in fact, I think this whole femininity coach thing it's not aligning with what she shares, and you've got a generation that's so impressionable hanging off her every word. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I'm not that person. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that there's certain things that she talks about that are not probably informative and that, there are from a place of sense. But this one that she did recently, I don't agree. And yeah, sometimes on my social media, I can be a bit sarcastic sometimes. But I think for me, what was really worrying is because I have people that I know that are close to me that listen to her. And whilst I would never tell, somebody what to listen to or who to listen to, it becomes a problem when I'm having to undo things that are not that are from a toxic school of thought or are from a dangerous school of thought. And I think Zizi Mill's post was so accurate because we're forgetting safety, but from my perspective, we're also forgetting the reasons why we are discussing, especially on my platform, taking charge of your career, taking charge of your life, understand how to navigate society, and actually those are the things that lead to independent school of thought. And when we talk about princess, well, why princess? Why can't we be queens in ourselves? Why can't we in ourselves do the work so that when we're going into society and we're dating, we're doing all these things, we're going in from a place of confidence? Why is that not being taught? Rather than this whole idea that a man's supposed to be worshipped, and if you worship him enough, then he'll give you crumbs. It's just bullshit to me. And that's why I've called this episode Princess Cuts, because number one, I love the song Princess Cuts from Headie One's album. But also as well, I think, why do we have to cut up, certain aspects of ourselves so that we then look to a relationship to make us whole? I just don't understand that, personally, for me. Now, I remember one of my mum's friends saying that if I do too much, a man will not know where his place is. And I put it to you that she didn't do enough. That's why her husband was always cheating on her, had a child with somebody in Nigeria, and came here and was living a double life. That's what I would say. Shade. Yes, it's shade, but it's true. Sometimes face your front. At the end of the day, if you're waiting for a man to come in and pattern you, it's not going to happen. Sometimes you got to pattern yourself. When Kay met me, I had my own place. I was working, making my own money, all of this, and doing my own thing. And whilst I always see the benefit of, well, for me anyway, I saw the benefit of wanting to be in a relationship and things like that. It wasn't the be all end all. What was more frustrating is I couldn't find somebody who was on my level. And my level is, I'm not willing to compromise myself, having come from struggle, to go back there. I wasn't prepared to do that because my struggle was deep. So why would I want to go back there? I wanted to meet somebody who could equally match me. So I talk about being evenly yoked, and part of that evenly yoked for me, and don't get me wrong, some people like men that they can work with, or they're not where they're supposed to, where a woman believes a man is supposed to be, but she'll work with because she sees potential. I personally wasn't willing to date that potential, because to date that potential was taking a risk. And I've come from the school of not even having money to buy sanitary towels or having the money to top up my electricity. I'm not going back there so that I can build some. No, everybody each their own, but I personally didn't. And I'm not sitting here saying I wanted somebody who's ready-made. I just needed somebody who'd done enough in their own lives that when we come together, we can build each other. You understand? Like, there's stuff that I could do with, and characteristics and things that I have that Kay doesn't, and vice versa. When we come together, we match because we're both taking and learning from each other. And equally as well, we're not, we're not, one of us wasn't having to, work with that level of potential. Obviously, there's potential in that you can see where somebody could be, but what I'm not doing is that type of potential where I started from the bottom, now I'm here, then I have to go back to the bottom again to get here again. For me, that never made any sense. But yeah, so I hope that's kind of cleared that up, and I hope that I've also given you another school of thought, on at least giving you another perspective on kind of what Breeny Lee posted, which I personally don't agree with, but she's entitled to her viewpoint, and it's about what you take out of what she said, and whether you can see the wood from the trees, if that makes sense. I do want to move on quickly to some dilemmas. So I've got 2 dilemmas in the mailbox, and I have to reply to these to both women actually, for different reasons. But for the purposes of this podcast episode, I am actually going to read their dilemmas. Okay. Dear Toya and the team, I hope you're doing well and having a great week. So she's entitled this: verbal feedbacks, and is 3 to 4 months too early for a pay rise. I want to thank you for Toy Talks podcast. It is truly one of a kind and has helped me in many ways, from also being dyslexic, being on and off universal credit, and having dealt with depression. Your podcast always reminds me that your past doesn't define you, and that only you can help yourself. Thank you for your openness, honesty, and helpfulness. You are a gem, Toya. I have a dilemma about a new role. It is a hybrid role, half admin, half IT technician for a small company. It is my first corporate job, and the reason I took this role is because I want to get into IT and become an IT engineer. This job is 10 minutes walk from my home, which is a big plus for me, but then my work hours are 9 p.m. to 6:30 p.m, so the plus is now a minus. So my salary is very low, and I knew this before accepting. I tried to negotiate, and they said this is the budget they had for the role, blah blah blah. And because it was through an agency that I did my IT course with, they pushed me to take it, so I did. Also, I just really wanted to start my working life and get off being on and off universal credit at my big age of 25. I wanted to buy your negotiation masterclass. At the time, I couldn't afford it. So when I started the role, I decided to write my objectives when it comes to the technical side of my role. So once I have completed it, I can bounce to a full IT technician role. My thing is, I believe I can meet my objectives in 3 to 4 months. Is that too early to move to another job? I don't want it to look bad on my CV. And if I was to stay longer and try to negotiate a higher salary, would 3 to 4 months be too early? So she's asked me 2 questions there, yeah? This is because I have been in the role for a month now. The director's wife, who works remotely as operations director and who I have my probation meeting with, says how amazing I am and how they want to develop me into a technician leader because of my operational skills, etc. Of course, I don't care what she says until she can put her money where her mouth is. That's my girl. I'm currently on, I don't want to say her salary, so I'd say she's on between 20 to 25,000 a year. And if I negotiate my salary with them in a couple of months' time, I want anything from between 28 to 32,000. Is this too high, and would I need to just find another role? I don't really know. I also wanted to know how I can build my feedback folder when my feedbacks are always verbal. That's the 3rd question. And I'm in a very small company, so I'm not sure how to go about this. I would love your assistance on if 3 to 4 months is early to leave a first career role, and how I can build my feedback folder with only verbal feedback. Thank you, Toya. Kind regards. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to just commend you on your level of honesty here, because I think it takes a lot to be vulnerable, and number one, to send a dilemma, but to be vulnerable enough to share the reality of what your dilemma is. So I just really want to commend you on that. What I will say is I will be sending you a personal email. I'll try and do it tonight. If not, then you'll get the email tomorrow morning, the day that this podcast episode is released, because it's something that you have shared here that I want to address off this episode, because it is quite private. that you shared here. Yeah, if that makes sense. So, your first question. So let's start with your objectives. I think that even without listening to the Passing Your Probation Masterclass, one of the key things that you've identified is that you need to define your own objectives. And part of that is the Probation Masterclass, Passing Your Probation Masterclass talks about how to build those objectives and how to get the feedback on those objectives to show and prove that you've passed it. So inevitably you're able to pass your probation. You would need to access the Probation Masterclass to be able to fully understand what I mean when I say that. But you're on the right track. So let's start with your first question. Is it too early to move to another job in 3 to 4 months' time? And it's never too early to move to another job, darling. I think that the reason... Okay, first of all, I don't believe that you can't negotiate a salary, even if they tell you that's their budget. If an organisation really wants you, they will find the money, because I've been in that situation so many times where they say this is the budget, and then when they feel that they are going to lose you, suddenly they find money. Where there is a cost code, there is a budget. There is an episode called that. So I don't think it's too early at 3 to 4 months into the role, if you feel that you've met your objectives, to then negotiate a salary. Now, the likelihood of you getting that's quite slim, because you've already accepted the salary as it is. So I think it's often when you don't negotiate in the beginning, then negotiate months in, it's harder for them, because you don't have as much leverage. You may think you do because you would have passed your probation, but you still took the role without negotiating, because that's the budget. You still accepted that. So you've eroded your leverage, because now you're in the role. They would see as the likelihood of you leaving is quite slim. So their need to come to the party of negotiation is harder. That's what I'm going to say. It's not impossible, because equally as well, one can turn around and say, well, if they feel they're going to lose you, they would negotiate, because the way they'd look at it, they'd have to spend more money replacing you. But then I personally, for me, what I would do is I think that you should start looking for new roles now, before you enter into any conversation about more money. And the reason you need to do that is, I think that when you're looking for new roles and you're interviewing, you're doing this without obviously saying anything to them. You're building up your confidence to be able to negotiate with them eventually. But also as well, I think you need to see on the market what you're able to attract. And thirdly, I think you need to always be interviewing anyway. And I say this all the time on various podcast episodes. I think you should always be interviewing. Now, someone can say, well, Toya, once you've got a job, no one wants to go through the process of doing interviews and stuff. Okay, fine. But the reality is, how do you know what's going on in the market if you're 3 to 4 months into a role and you haven't been on interviews? And I think you need options. Not because you're going to use that as a bargaining chip in the negotiation with your current employer, but because I think for you personally, you need to have options. Because I think you need to see what you could get somewhere else and the conditions and culture that you could be working for. And it makes you more confident at the negotiation table, because when you're negotiating, it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like a scent that you give out, whereby you will negotiate with your current employer and they will dig their heels in. But there's a way you will negotiate, and they'll think at the back of their minds, she could leave, without you actually saying it. Bearing in mind that in your left hand, you've got a job offer somewhere. So I think you should be interviewing anyway, and I think you need to be strategic and tactical. You said that this is your first corporate job. Well, darling, if you listen to the podcast episode, you'll understand that whether corporate or not, the concepts of navigating work is the same. You don't owe anybody nothing. The only person you owe anything to is to yourself. You owe loyalty to yourself, your career, and your pocket. You don't owe this organisation nothing. Now, you're talking about whether it looks bad on your CV or not. Well, it depends how you explain it at interview. I've gone to interviews before, and they've said to me, "Oh, you were at so and so place for 4 months or 5 months." And I said, "Yeah. Unfortunately, when I got to this role, I've achieved a lot of my objectives, and unfortunately there is nowhere else for me to go. And they sold the job to me as this, and actually when I got there it was this. And in order for me to feel fulfilled in my career and continue to progress, I recognise the need for me to go to a company that's willing to encourage and support my progression. Unfortunately, this company doesn't have the financial means to support my progression. Can you see how I've just explained that away? That's how I've explained it. It depends how you frame things. So there's a podcast episode about framing. It's called Framing is Not Just for Pictures or something. I've got an episode called that. Go and listen to that episode. How you frame things at interview. And also the CV Masterclass, I talk about how to frame short-term roles. What I will say is on your CV, you could say that you're working on a project. It's about how you frame things. It's how you frame them. And if you put on your CV, oh, you worked somewhere for 2 months and somewhere for 3 months and somewhere for 2 months, yeah, it doesn't look good. So you need to provide context. You know, if you work somewhere for 3 months or 4 months, say, oh, project based for 4 months, or to complete project 4 months remaining or something. It's how you control the narrative to explain without, and this is even before you've had an interview. When you get to an interview, it's easy to explain, isn't it? Based on what I've just said. But on a CV is a shop window. So you have to remember, you have to frame it in a certain way at that shop window so you can go into further detail at interview stage. So your next question is, oh, hang on, let me see your next question. Okay, I thought you had 3 questions. Hang on, move to another job. Is it too early to move to another job? So I've answered that. No, it's not. Of course. No. Okay, fine. Your other question was, also I wanted to know how I can build my feedback folder when my feedbacks are always verbal. So if you go through the Toy Talks podcast, there is an episode on feedback folder, and I actually think it's in the title of one of the previous episodes, so you need to go ahead and listen to that. But what I will say is, as part of your objectives, every time you have a meeting, you should be sending a summary email anyway. Because if you send a summary email, and in that summary email, you do a summary, it's a paragraph, 2 at best, and you basically summarise what was agreed, what objectives were passed, and the feedback she provided, and then say to her at the bottom of the email, just say, please acknowledge safe receipt. Then when she acknowledges it, oh, received, then she's accepting the contents of your email. That's how you do it. Every time you have a meeting about your objectives, it is your responsibility to follow up with a summary email. And this is why I keep saying on the probation masterclass, passing your probation masterclass, passing your probation is your responsibility. It is yours. It's not theirs. It's your responsibility to make it so difficult for you. So it's your responsibility to make it so difficult for them to not pass your probation. Because if they're agreeing that you've passed, you did this, and now you don't pass anymore, that's a problem. And they don't want that on their hands, because now it becomes personal. They don't want to be going down that road. So every time you have a meeting, you need to follow up with an email, as I've said, like high level, what was discussed, what objectives were met and complete, and you confirm that you were really happy with this, and you quote what she said. And then at the end of it, just thank you so much for our meeting. These are the other things I'll be working on in terms of my objectives. I look forward to our next meeting. And you write the date of the next meeting, because now you're holding her accountable. And then the last line will be, please acknowledge safe receipt. That's how you manage that. So hopefully that helps. Like I said, I'll be sending you an email anyway, because there's something that you said here that was very personal, that I will address privately with you. But I'm hoping that what I've said here has helped you and will help you. And please keep us updated as well. Let me know kind of what's happened, and at the end of your probation period, what's happened. Did you manage to negotiate? If you did, how much more did you manage to get? Or did you interview and then get another role that gives you more money? You are not wedded to an organisation because out of fear of how other people will look at you for staying for a short time. It is known, like there's people that go into organisations and it's sold to them one way, they get there and it's a complete catastrophe, completely opposite to what was sold to them, and people move on. People do it all the time. Don't feel trapped in an organisation because you're scared that if you're there for less than a certain amount of time, people will see you as flaky. As long as it's not a consistent pattern of that, I don't see the problem. And even as a contractor myself, as I've been, sometimes you're there for 6 months and you move on. And if anyone's got a problem with that, then clearly, you know, they're just looking for an excuse to not hire you. And that's how I would look at it. But yeah, hopefully everything I've said helps, and I will be emailing you as well. Next dilemma is called dealing with recruiters. Hi Toya, hello Toya, I hope you're doing well and staying safe. This is not a dilemma as such, but I wanted your thoughts on the matter. So when people email me and say it's not a dilemma, you want my thoughts, that's a dilemma. And yeah, so just to let you know, it is a dilemma because you want my thoughts on something. But yeah, I've been looking and interviewing for new roles as the contract at my current organisation is coming to an end. So my assumption is you're a contractor, right? As part of this process, I decided to go through a recruitment agency I had previously worked with. I reached out, told them I was on the market and was open to any opportunities they might have. The lady I had worked with previously had left, so I was assigned someone else. She scheduled an interview to discuss my expectations and any potential roles. During this initial conversation, I would say I noticed a red flag. We discussed my salary expectations and she proceeded to tell me that my salary expectations were too high. Bear in mind the lady she had replaced had got me interviews with organisations offering me more than my salary expectation. So then why is your expectation lower than what the previous agent thought you could get? Because they thought you could get higher. So why have you made it lower? I don't understand. So I did not understand why this was suddenly an issue. She kept pressing and tried to find out how low I would go for an offer. Now, let me tell you, that's not just a red flag. That is a bright, shining, flashing red flag. They want to know how low you can go because there's a couple of reasons. Number one, they have roles in mind for you that are really low, that they know other people won't take. But she hopes if she batters you down, you'll accept it and then she gets her commission. Bearing in mind, recruiters only care about the commission. I'm so sorry. I think there's only 2 recruiters I've ever met which are interested in their commission, but are also interested in establishing relationships. And I still have relationships with them now, and it's been 5-6 years on. But there's only 2 of them that I know are like that. The average recruiter, they don't give a shit. It's in their interest to batter you down just to get, because you see, some of these recruiters, they themselves don't know how to negotiate. The job of a recruiter that they have, that they're doing now, they probably didn't even negotiate their salaries. So they're looking at you thinking, who do you think you are? Why can't you just accept what I'm giving you? But what a lot of these recruiters are not realising is things have changed. Things have changed, especially with what happened at COVID, when we had a lot of time to spend time with ourselves. We understood how much money we were saving. We now understood the power that we yielded as contractors and or employees. Things have changed. So this whole take lower because that's what you're going to get is shit. And I've had experiences with recruiters in the past, especially when I first started contracting, or even when my last perm role as well, where one recruiter, he basically refused to negotiate with the employer on my behalf. He point blank refused. So I said, well, I'm not taking the job. And then when they were like, when the organisation were like, no, we want Toya, he came crawling back like a deranged cockroach. And then suddenly he was willing to listen. I said, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it. And I got the money I wanted. I've had recruiters tell me no, they can only, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to work with you. It's simple as that. Do you understand? But this one that is battering you down, there's a problem there. Because what she's basically saying is, I'm not putting you for a higher role. Then you have to look at other agencies, because personally for me, as a contractor, even more so as a contractor, I know what the market dictates. And if you are already telling me that the money you put yourself forward for is even less than what you were being offered with the same agency, there's clearly a problem here. And also, you're not valuing yourself enough. You're not valuing yourself enough. Maybe this agency isn't the right agency for you. So to continue, moving on from that conversation, I proceeded to interview with one of the companies she suggested and was made an offer. She asked me if I would take the offer, and I told her I was at the final stage interview at another firm, so I would like to weigh up my options. Why did you tell her that? What is it about us as black women that we overshare? Why did you tell her that? I just want to say something here. I've been contracting for what? I think it's coming up to 7 years now. 6-7 years now. And I'm going to be honest with you. The only person that I overshare with is Kay. Why are you telling this agency that you've got another offer, your final stage of an offer? Why are you doing that? I don't understand why. So I want to understand, and I need to understand why you are doing that. Because from one contract to another, one contractor to another, I'm going to be honest with you. I have had roles, where I've interviewed 5, 6, 7 roles, different roles with different agencies. And the agency will say, have you got anything in the pipeline? And I will say, oh, I've been put forward for an interview for a big tech company. That's as far as I'll go, because I'm dangling the fruit. These times I've already been given an offer. They'll say, oh, what's the agency? Oh, sorry, I can't discuss that. I've signed an NDA. What's the organisation? I can't discuss that, sorry. Are you in charge of your career, or are they? There is an podcast episode I've got about managing employment agencies. I think you need to go and listen to it. They work for you. You don't work for them. And that mindset needs to be embedded in your mind. They work for you. You don't work for them. I got a call last week. I'm not looking for new roles, by the way. I need to take a break. And I got a call from a particular agency that I can't stand. They're annoying. So a guy calls me. He says, oh, what's your current situation? I says, I've got an assignment. I've had this assignment for 10 months. They've tried to extend further, but I'm not interested because I need a bit of a break. So my last week is next week. I was just chatting shit. I was chatting shit, okay? But I need to let them know that it's my choice. I'm in demand. For the right role, I could reconsider this break. Yeah, that's what I do. Because if you let them know that you've got other things going on, they will now tell you, start talking shit. And secondly of all, if I overshare with you, how does that benefit me? It doesn't benefit me in any way. Like, what is it? I'm gonna touch on that after this dilemma about oversharing. We need to talk about that because I keep talking about this in previous episodes, and if I have to keep talking about it once every quarter, I'm willing to do it. Stop oversharing. Stop it. It doesn't serve you. I don't know if some of you are doing honesty. What's it? Honesty, jeloma. Honesty, jeloma. Like, you guys are doing this honesty parade. Like, what is it? Like, you don't have to be dishonest, but you don't have to be honest like that. You understand? Like, why? And this is why our white counterparts are doing way, 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 way better. Because they know how to smile in your face. These times I've got about 4 offers. And then we just smile in your face. They don't care. The sooner we learn to prioritize our own needs above this need to be validated, the better for us. Let me continue reading, Sha. So, moving on from the conversation, I proceeded to interview with one of the companies she suggested and was made an offer. She asked me if I would take the offer. I told her I was at the final stage interview at another firm, so I'd like to weigh my options. Wow. To be honest, I was more inclined to go with the firm I secured the offer with. Okay, fine. But I had started the process and wanted to see it through. But that's your personal thing. That's what you want to do on a personal level, right? She proceeded to tell me that it would not look good if I was still interviewing with other organisations. Well, of course she's going to say that, because if you're interviewing other organisations, she's less likely to make her commission. She sees it as a threat. You're basically saying to her, I'm interviewing for other places, so I'm not prioritising it. Yeah, of course she's going to say that. And they might rescind the offer. Well, they're only going to rescind the offer if she tells them. She's basically threatening you. If you don't take the job, if you don't take the job with her, then she's rescinding. That's what she's... From her perspective, I already had an offer and it did not make sense to keep the other organisation waiting. Well, it does. But it doesn't make sense because you shared it. And basically implied I should cancel my other interview. Well, what do you expect her to say? Why would it be in her interest for you to continue interviewing if you've got offer from an organisation that she's facilitated an interview with. I was hoping for your insight on how you would have managed this. Well, I've just explained. I do not see why I should cancel this other interview when I did not even have anything in writing. I believe she's out of order, but I was hoping for your perspective on the matter. Thank you for your time. Well, the person who's out of order is you, really. You're out of order towards yourself. You haven't prioritised your needs. What is it? I need to understand, like, is it a generational thing? Because maybe I'm from the generation anyway where, you know, we hold our cards close to our chests. I'm trying to understand, is it a generation thing where this generation are doing the whole honesty or jealoba, honesty or pigwe? Like, is that what we're doing? Sorry, it's this Igbo song like my mum used to sing in the house. It was so funny. But it was I think, yeah, she's out of order, but she's a recruiter. Recruiters are like used car salesmen. That's how they move. So I already expect this behaviour from them. So it doesn't make her out of order. Actually, she's a used car salesman. Start seeing these recruiters as used car salesmen. They will chat shit to get that car off the forecourt. They will tell you that car can fly you to the moon and back in 24 hours. You understand? It's not in a recruiter's interest for you to have more than one agency you're working with. It's not in a recruiter's interest to negotiate on your behalf, even though it really is in their interest because they get commission. But they're stupid, some of them, short-sighted and stupid. Number 3, it's not in her interest that you're at a final stage interview and you've already got an offer. That's not in her interest because she loses out on that money. So if you're talking about red flags, you gave her the red flag. So let's not put this on her. You gave her the red flag. I personally, if I was you, I would, you need to take a step back. And you need to, if she says to you, oh, have you cancelled the other interview or whatever, I think you just need to be like, listen, I haven't had an offer in writing, and if you would like me to cancel my interview, I'd like an offer in writing, please. So that you give her a task to do, so that you can now have breathing space to think. But please learn from this situation, because if you are really an avid listener of the Toy Talks podcast, you wouldn't overshare like how you have done, especially as a contractor. Listen, even more so as a contractor, yeah, you work for yourself. Whether you're inside IR35 or outside IR35, you work for yourself. Yeah? You need to start seeing yourself as a business. How many episodes have I been saying this to everybody? Start seeing yourself as a business. Move and operate like a business. These recruiters are used car salespeople. And if you believe the stereotype of a used car salesperson, me, I've gone to these showrooms, I've seen these used car salespeople, they behave like that. They're like Del Boys. They're trying to sell their cars. These recruiters have loads of roles, and they earn a basic salary, and then they earn commission on top. I've heard some wild stories of employment agencies. Wild. Sorry, I started telling you a story and I cut myself off. I'm so sorry. So, the call that I got, agency, told them, I was just chatting shit. I said, yeah, I've got a week left of my contract to do this and the third. So the guy says to me, oh, he's got a role that he thinks I'm going to be good for. Of course you are. You think I'm going to be good for. That's why you rang me. I'm not flattered by these cheap words of cheapness. I don't care. Then he says to me, oh, so I said to him, because he asked me, what am I looking for? So I said, it would be my current field. However, I says, I've got non-negotiables. He says, what are they? I says, the role needs to be 100% remote. If I do have to come into the office maybe once a month or once a quarter, there needs to be a reason, a specific reason. I'm not just going to go there so they can see the whites of my eyes. That's what I said to him. I said, secondly, I'm a contractor, so I work on a day rate. I said, and thirdly, it's really important to me if this is an inside IR35 role, I need to know your preferred list of umbrella companies, because I have a particular umbrella company that I'm only going to work with. So they said, okay, cool. High pitched, okay, cool. Then he proceeded to tell me about the role. Then, remember, I've given him my non-negotiables. This is what he said to me about the role. He said to me that the role requires 2 days a week in Birmingham. He then says to me, oh, it is a contractor role, FTC. I said to him, did you hear what I said about my non-negotiables? He said yes. I said, so why are we still talking about 2 days a week in Birmingham? That's not remote, it's hybrid. He said yes. I said, but I'm not interested. He goes, oh, are you sure? You know, I said, no. I said, I've been remote since the pandemic, and I've got an office in my house, so I'm not understanding why I need to be in the office. He went quiet. I said, an FTC is not a contract role. That's not. I work on a day rate, so an FTC will be salaried. He said yes. I said, so that's incompatible with what I'm saying. Then he was trying to go on. He said, oh, but you know, a lot of roles are now becoming hybrid. I said, no. There are equally a lot of roles becoming hybrid as there are remote. I said, I was offered a role with a big tech giant, and it was 100% remote. If they can be 100% remote, everybody else can be 100% remote. Unless you can give me a justifiable reason as why I need to be in the office. He said, oh, maybe it's something he can take to the client. I said, but you still have another issue. I said, I work on a day rate basis. This is my current day rate. I don't work on an FTC. So how are we going to work this? He goes, what's my day rate? So obviously I've given him an inflated cost because you never really give them your day rate. You add a couple of hundred on top of it. I said, but I'm willing to negotiate. That's what I said. He still wasn't getting it. And then he was still trying to sell me the role. I said, listen, I'm not interested. I've just told you my non-negotiables, and nothing about this role fits into that non-negotiable. And it was still, I said, excuse me, this conversation, we're not getting anywhere. You have to be forthright with them, because he's behaving like a used car salesman. He's behaving the way I know he's going to behave. But I already know that I'm never going to work with him again because he doesn't listen. And these type of people that don't listen will have you a job offer and be harassing you to take the job. He already knows I'm not desperate for a role because I set the scene for him. I haven't overshared with him. So for example, he doesn't know that I'm currently in a contract earning X amount of money, and actually this contract are trying to beg me to stay, all of this. I've been here since. I don't need to tell him all of that. He doesn't need to know that I interviewed with XYZ company before now that he's called me. Doesn't need to know that, because how does it serve me? But I think as black women, sometimes we overshare because we're looking for validation, or we think that our honesty will be appreciated. No, it won't. It'll be used against you. It'll be used against you in a negotiation. It'll be used against you in a conversation. It will be used against you to apply pressure to force you into what they want you to do. Now, if you don't know how to manage employment agencies, then I suggest you listen to the episode that I have about managing employment agencies. I'm going to find that episode and I'll get Jennifer to email it to you. But you need to listen to my podcast, because there's nothing in a dilemma that you send me that I won't be able to address as to the best of my ability. But then there will always be a supporting episode that, after I give you advice, that supporting episode will also help you as well. Do you understand? But I feel as though what you're calling red flags are standard for these used car salesman recruiters. It's really as simple as that. A proper recruiter, a recruiter that understands the value of money and understands the value of relationship, will always try to put you at a higher pay, or will at least put you forward at a higher pay and then negotiate on your behalf, because the more money they get you, the more commission they make. The one that this recruiter here clearly hasn't placed anybody for a long time, so she's just trying to make some money so that she can get her goals and objectives, so that she's not penalised in her workplace, because she's got targets too. So I feel as though you need to re-look at your relationship with your recruiters, because you're not taking charge of them, they're taking charge of you. And this is why you're finding yourself in this position. So hopefully the advice I've given you helps you. Let me know, keep us updated. And I hope that you choose a role that best suits you. And please, please, please stop undervaluing yourself. If a recruiter undervalues you, it's your job to make them value you correctly, or you find another agency. You see, I used to be one of these people in my earlier career, in early stages of contracting, where I'd be so worried because I used to think that, these agencies is based on relationship. And whilst it is, there's so many agencies out there. There's so many that I haven't even heard of, that have contacted me and gotten me jobs. So yes, whilst I don't actively burn bridges, I understand that if we are incompatible about our approach, I'm willing to continue looking on the market. And I love what you've done here, whereby you are interviewing with other agencies and things like that. But that's your business. Why are you telling these agencies? Why are you doing that? And then my fear is, the one that's offered you a job, you've even told them that you're still interviewing. What's all that? I recently posted on my TikTok anyway, something that I've always spoken about, and people have sent me messages on my DMs and also on TikTok and said, Toya, you've always told us this from the beginning. And people actually sharing their stories where they overshared before, but after listening to the podcast, they see the benefit of not oversharing. This is an example. Come on. There was this one girl, and the dilemma was not too long ago, where she basically shared with her boss that she was planning to buy a house, this, that, and the third. She knew she had passed all her objectives. Then she was planning, obviously, get her bonus. Then when she did her review, the boss said, that she hasn't passed her objectives because they want to keep her motivated because she's achieving so much. They feel like if she achieved all of these objectives, she will not be motivated anymore. And therefore, she's not motivated anymore. She will not continue to achieve. Can you see this warped way of thinking? And all because she overshared. She couldn't even explain to me why she told her boss that she was getting a mortgage. Why? And now she was worried that she's not going to get the mortgage now, innit? Because number one, she ain't getting the bonus. And number two, she had to challenge that decision making, which means she's putting herself in a position whereby getting her mortgage is 50-50 now, because they may try and use this now to get rid of her because she's challenging them. My question to her was, why did you share that? Why? She couldn't tell me. Then I was giving her advice, and then she decided to go to the union. The advice the union gave her was so bad. So she ignored my advice. Then it really came to bite her in the backside. Then she came back to me and she said, Toya, I shouldn't have listened to this guy. I said, listen, who has your best interests more than a fellow black woman who's been in your position or knows how to advise in that type of position? You went to go and listen to somebody, a white man. That's who you went to go and listen to about your black female issues. Whereas the black woman, me, you didn't want to listen. Then we went through it. I advised her how to deal with it. She dealt with it very well. And she got what she wanted. They had to reverse their decision. But the beginning of this thing is oversharing. If you never told them you were trying to get a mortgage and elevate yourself, they would have now scupper your plans by hitting you where it hurts. I don't understand. Why do you show people where your kryptonite is? I don't understand why you guys do that. It's very strange to me. You see me, I am the queen of moving in silence. Me. Listen, I've got episodes for you lot, you know. I've got a lot of episodes. Some of you your mouth is going to drop on the floor. Drop, you know, say drop on the floor. It drop. Because I carry myself, and I'm going to say it, I'm going to give myself shoulders. I carry myself on a need to know basis, and you may not need to know. You see this world of work business, yeah? Listen, I don't move reckless. No, I move with sense. Do you know why? These people think we're stupid. They do. They very much do. They very much underestimate us, and they very much do not like us. But they know if you want best in class, you have to come to black women, because we do over and above in education, in skills. We do, because we know that we need to do more than the average. So we are best in class as black women. We are. We know it. We don't turn up shoddy. Then I come there and I'm telling you my plans. No. Listen, where I work now, they don't even know I'm married. No. He thinks I live by myself because that's what he told somebody. I think Toy lives on her own because any time that I'm on a call with her, it's always really quiet in her background. You and I both know I'm a whole married woman. He thinks I live by myself. I think he thinks I live with cats. You guys know I can't stand animals, so how does that even work? But if that's the narrative they've chosen, fine. I don't need to tell him my plans. Listen, let me tell you. I went to Dubai in January for a week. I took my work laptop. They thought I was in England. They didn't even know I was in Dubai. That's how I move. Because half of them people probably can't even afford to go to Dubai, or feel like they can't afford the type of hotel that I'm willing to go to. Then why am I going to come and tell them and play on their insecurity? Why am I going to do that? Then every time they call me, maybe there's a meeting or something, and I'm 2 minutes late, they now think I'm gallivanting because I went to Dubai. This is how these people's mind think. So why would I give them the ammunition to use against me? No. They think I don't leave my house. They ask me, oh, what are you doing on the weekend? I said, I'm just tidying up the master bedroom. Yeah. I'm just tidying up. Yeah, I say I'm tidying up the master bedroom. Oh, how many rooms have you got in your house? Oh, just one. My office is where I sleep. I don't tell them I live in a 4-bedroom house outside London. No, you don't need to know that. It's none of your business. Oh, what part of London do you live in? North London. What are they going to do with the information if I tell them I live outside London? Then when I ask me if I live outside London, they ask me if I drive. If I tell them I drive, what car do you drive? Tell them what car I drive. They go, this one, she has too much. I'm going to cut her down to size. No, I'm not telling you shit. If you want to believe I live in a dustbin next to the Lurpak butter, that's up to you. But what I'm not going to do is give you the ammunition. Some of you are so wanting to be a part of organisation and team so badly, you give them yourself on a full plate. That's what you do. And then when it bites you in the bum, you will now say, hey, I don't know why this has happened. Well, I know why. Because you're big mouth. Why? I've had 2 contracts running at the same time for 2 years. So at different organisations, at any one time I could have 2 contracts. They will never know. Never know. One of my friends has got 4 contracts running at the same time. You will never know. He is on a comfortable 6 figures. It's none of your business. He recently bought a house where I live. You will never know. Because he's not coming to tell you. He's not coming to tell these organisations. Why is it that we think so low of ourselves that we feel like the more we share, the more we'll be accepted? I'm here to tell you, they're not going to accept you because we're black. It's as simple as that. We're black. They're not going to accept you. They've got a problem with you being black. So no matter what you share with them, they're not going to accept. I'm really sick and tired of people talking about, we're being more inclusive. We're everywhere inclusive. You're not being more inclusive. What you are being is pretending to be inclusive so you can get close to understand and then to use it as the information that you learn as a weapon against these people who innocently are just trying to be accepted. I have accepted a few things with workplaces. I've accepted that the average people I work with in my white-dominated industry cannot stand me. They can't stand me before I've spoken because I'm a black woman. They can't stand me because I know I'm more educated, if not equally educated than them. They can't stand me because I know my job. And this is the reason why a lot of them, they want to wield this authority by making you feel like everything has to go past them, therefore eroding your ability to have autonomy, to make decisions and actually do your job. I know all these things. So if you're already in that know, why do you serve yourself as meat for these people? I move like a business. And the way I move like a business is anything I tell you is my own business intelligence. Why am I going to tell you that? Why? Everywhere I've worked, they're desperate to meet up because I'm remote. We have to meet up in London, have to meet up. No. I'm sorry, I don't need to see you outside of Teams. I'm not interested in smelling your Crest Pret-a-Manger breath. Your Pret-a-Manger sandwich breath. I'm not interested in smelling it. I don't want to come there. I don't need to come there and see that you haven't removed the sleep out of your eyes and your breath stinks of coffee. I'm not interested. I will play the game. I'm fine, thank you. It's all surface level. I've got my friends outside of work. Those of you who go into the office, I've already spoken about how to navigate if you're in person. I've had those conversations with you and the concept remains the same. Need to know basis. One of my friends, yeah, if you see her, she's a designer babe. If she has to go in the office, she will go to Clark's and buy a pair of shoes. She will wear one shirt from M&S and some humble trousers from Zara. That's how she goes to work. But I'm telling you, when she's not at work, the girl sleeps in Gucci pajamas. I'm telling you the gospel truth. That tells you that you control your own narrative. It's up to you. If you want to give them the ammunition and you want to serve yourself as a meat platter, that's up to you. But some of us choose to move in silence. Because why? Not only do we get the job done, but it's a need to know basis, and they don't need to know. This level of oversharing is becoming too much. That's what I'm going to say on the matter. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, you know. We're entering a new financial year. I'm so excited because I live my life according to financial year. Yeah, I do, because I see my life as a business. I have so much content coming out on TikTok. You guys are going to love it. Also as well, I'm almost done with the contractor, interim, consultant, freelance masterclass. I'm so excited about that because it's for anyone who's contracting at the moment, or anyone looking into get into contracting or freelance work, irrespective of your industry. I've kept it agnostic. Is that the words? Yeah, agnostic. So that anyone who is in different industries can still benefit from the masterclass. So that will go up in March. I'll let you know when that goes live. Secondly, I want to reiterate that this podcast is not just for people in the corporate world. I'm no longer in the corporate world. I'm just in the working world now. I used to be in the corporate world years ago. I've worked in so many different sectors and fields. I've worked in so many different sectors in my field, and therefore this podcast is for anyone in the working world, any black woman first, because I choose black women first. I am a black woman, so my experiences are through the lens of a black woman. So I always choose black women first, and all those PR companies that have reached out to me telling me, can I interview so-and-so guest? And they want me to cover certain topics. I'm like, first of all, this is not a black woman, so this person isn't coming on my podcast. And people may say, oh, Toya, that's harsh, but this podcast is 2 black women, 4 black women, about black women, and then it's any other woman that can identify. But what I can't do is have a guest on that's coming to tell me about her experience from a white lens. Well, we already know, darling. We don't need you to tell us. We have our own experience. We know what your lens is. Anyway, let me leave it there, queens. Please fix that crown and wear it straight on your heads, shoulders high. Let us move with the dignity in which we have worked hard to achieve. Let us walk and work in our purpose. Let us understand the queens that we are. Let us stop oversharing and stop giving people ammunition to use against us. May we continue to walk and work in our purpose. May we also understand our potential and recognize our value. Because when you recognize your value, you'll stop selling yourself as cheap. If you want to follow me on social media, I have a YouTube channel called At Home with Toya. It's about to get very interesting on that YouTube channel, so I suggest you keep your eyes peeled. I upload bi-weekly, by the grace of God. Also, of course, you know, every Tuesday we have a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. I am very active on Instagram. It's my preferred choice of social media. I think it's because on the Instagram stories it's 24 hours and I love that. And also, I feel like you guys are a lot more interactive on Instagram, and so am I. So my personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. The Toy Talks podcast Instagram page is Toya_Talks. Of course, I am on Snapchat, which actually is the birthplace of Toy Talks. And my handle is Toya Washington, which is all one word. If you want to, please go and catch me on TikTok. The content is going to be sharp. The content is going to be nice. The content is going to be refreshing. Make sure you go and follow me on TikTok. My handle is Toya Washington. Go and leave me a comment, follow. And I look forward to uploading more content. If you have a work-related dilemma, or maybe if it's just a life-related dilemma, and you think I'll be able to help you with it, email hello@toytalks.com and I will address your dilemma anonymously. And hopefully, you know, you are very clear about what you want help with. Be clear about what outcome you're trying to achieve, and I will do my level best to, number one, read it out on the podcast, but number two, help you as much as I can, as much as possible. I just want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Make sure you acquaint yourself with some of the previous episodes, and I will see you all again for a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.